in Norton, Massachusetts. That's Norton. Between Norton and Attleboro, Massachusetts, you have a lot of wetlands, rivers, lakes. So there was a landfill. Landfill is where, lots of waste, nuclear waste, industrial waste is shared. I covered a story in the St. Louis area about a nuclear waste landfill that's very close to an underground chemical fire, right? So Laidlaw landfill is located in Plainville, Massachusetts. There, amongst other things, they buried black ash, which comes from coal. The manufacturing of coal, which Obama tried to get rid of coal. Now Trump claims he's bringing it back. But coal is one of the most environmentally toxic materials known to man, much less America. So black ash, among other things, was buried at the Laidlaw landfill. That landfill in Plainville, Massachusetts, it was supposed to be buried seamlessly, and I'm borrowing quite a bit from Heather's great reporting, so go check out Heather's videos on her Facebook page. That's Heather Lynn. But they were supposed to be buried seamlessly. Apparently not so much. The contamination, basically right across from the landfill, you have a four-lane highway, and then you have wetlands. So the contamination spread directly across the landfill to a water reservoir that people live near and drink their water from. So, you don't only have Laidlaw landfill, you have the Shpack landfill. That is Shpack, Shpack landfill, which is located between the towns of Norton and Attleboro. It's 9.4 acres, and it's 12 miles. 12 miles away from Laidlaw landfill. So you got Laidlaw on this part. 12 miles down the road, obviously 12 miles is longer than this, is Shpack. The distance between these two landfills, all wetlands. You got rivers, lakes, reservoirs. Is that a microwave chilling on your stove? You damn right it is, baby. New York City, small apartment, but I'll probably take it off the stove soon so I don't burn the place down. So, this Shpack landfill, and press the share button. And I'm going to make a point, this is not just in Massachusetts. This is not just in St. Louis. This is happening everywhere. So you better check what's going on in your neck of the woods. The Shpack landfill was privately owned for years until the town of Attleboro took it over. Attleboro had a contract with a subsidiary of Texas Instruments. Texas Instruments, no friend to the environment. Attleboro had a contract with a subsidiary of Texas Instruments called Metals and Control, Inc. Metals and Control, Inc. Metals and Control, Inc. had a contract with the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Department of Atomic Energy, a.k.a. building nuclear material. So, they had a contract with the Department of Atomic Energy, and they created enriched uranium, which I've been reporting on lately because apparently Hillary Clinton and Obama sold off enriched uranium to Russia, knowing that Russia is engaged in bribery, money laundering, extortion, but that's a different story. So, Texas Instruments subsidiary that Attleboro contracted, Attleboro, Massachusetts, had a contract with the U.S. Department of Atomic Energy, and they created enriched uranium. So the waste was buried at the Shpack landfill, and the radiation from that wasn't brought to anyone's attention until a college student did a study on snails and noticed that the snail had very thin shells or no shells at all. There's a college student that found these insane levels of radiation. So this was declared, the Shpack landfill was declared an EPA Superfund site in 1986. Well, in October, I have a press release here from the EPA, October 11th, so what is that? We're October 25th right now. October 11th was literally 2 weeks ago. EPA removes the Shpak landfill site from the national priorities list. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has removed the Shpak landfill, a Superfund site located in Attleboro and Norton, Massachusetts, from the national priorities list, aka Superfund. Deleting sites from NPL may occur once all response actions are complete and all cleanup goals have been achieved. Okay. The EPA says it went 12 feet under the service level as part of cleanup and removed 900 pounds of radioactive waste and is now removing the site as a Superfund site. You want to know what the water coming out of people's faucets and coming out of their baths looks like in Norton, Massachusetts and parts of Attleboro? And this is as recently as 2 weeks ago. Does that look like clean water to you? Let me tell you where that was. Hold on. That's Norton, Massachusetts. I'm not going to give the person's name who posted it, but I will tell you, trying to wash out the tub after discussing water. So you have one Superfund site, but you have two landfills. You got one landfill that buried black ash, another one that buried enriched uranium, and you have that coming out of people's water. Let me show you some other images, people's water. Oh, by the way, that is the same tub. You see that? That looks like toxic sludge. That's that same bathtub once it was built up. Let me show you more images. This coming out of somebody's hose. Kind of looks like brownish yellowish. And that picture is from October 13th. Then you have, hold on, October 13th. Sink. It's a photo. More. Unfortunately. Oh, you could look at the books I'm reading. Here's another October 13th. Who needs to go to Starbucks? That is absolutely vile and disgusting. And ladies and gentlemen, this, a Superfund site. Now, the contamination might not solely be coming from that one Superfund site because there's two landfills within 12 miles of each other, and there are wetlands all between them, lakes, rivers, reservoirs. So let me read you a story from 2016, so last year. Ex-workers cite Attleboro uranium plant radiation for illness and death. More than 24 former employees of a shuttered Texas Instruments plant in Attleboro that fabricated uranium fuel for nuclear reactors have sued the Dallas company in federal court, saying it failed to protect them from radiation and toxic chemicals at the site. But what do you know? The plaintiffs, a group that includes the estates of former employees who have since died, allege they have been stricken with cancers and other serious ailments from exposure to dangerous materials such as uranium that the company handled in fulfilling government contracts at its 100-acre campus on Forest Street in Attleboro. Alleging Texas Instrument had lax safety standards, recklessly disposed of radioactive and toxic waste, and hid the dangers from its employees, the workers are seeking tens of millions of dollars in compensation. According to the lawsuit and the federal regulatory records from the 1970s and 80s, Texas Instruments routinely burned and buried radioactive scrap metal and toxic chemicals at the Forest Street facility and at a nearby private dump called the Speck landfill that closed in the 1960s and later became a Superfund cleanup site. Again, the EPA just removed it as a Superfund site, even though that black-brown sludge is coming out of people's sink water, as well as their bath water. The extensive contamination of the area by radioactive metals, waste acids, and toxic chemicals such as PCBs, the workers said, meant they were exposed to radiation and poison simply by showing up for work. They said Texas Instruments did not provide protective gear or limit their access to radioactive areas, test them for exposure at the time, or contact them later when the full extent of the problem became clear. So what you have there, folks, is what you're seeing in the St. Louis area with the Bridgeton landfill, and probably what you're seeing in other areas where chemical waste, black coal or black ash, nuclear active waste is pretty much recklessly dumped underground. It's not put underground properly. Maybe it is put underground properly, but then other chemicals leach into the ground through fracking or whatever else. And you get water contamination. And even with water contamination, even with those faucets that are coming out brown and black right now, you have the EPA literally taking it off their Superfund site. Is there something wrong here? Dave says, fracking is destroying well water in Pennsylvania. And I really encourage you to go to Heather Lynn's page. That's Heather, last name Lynn. She's an independent journalist, investigative reporter up there. Get the story from her too, because she lives up there. But I will tell you, like I always say, it's not, if I report on Flint or I report on Massachusetts or East Chicago or North Carolina, it's not only an issue for the people in those cities or those towns, because this contamination is happening everywhere. It's just the corporate media doesn't find it sexy. You know, people like living or dying or the number one natural resource, who gives a shit if that's contaminated? Does it have anything to do with Trump? Is Russia involved? It's insane. So other towns that are affected, and I'm personally affected because my aunt and uncle live in one of these towns. You have Plainville, Massachusetts, that is within the area for these two landfills. Norton, Massachusetts. Norfolk, Massachusetts. Wrentham, Massachusetts. Foxborough, Massachusetts. Mansfield, Massachusetts, where my aunt and uncle live. Attleboro, Massachusetts. And Sharon, Massachusetts. So let me read one more time. You got Plainville, Norton, Norfolk, Wrentham, Foxborough, Mansfield, Attleboro, Sharon. If you live in those areas, if you have family that live in those areas, I already texted my aunt. I would either get independent testing or start going down to your city council. Start calling your public officials. And for those of you who are in EPA Region 1, which covers New England, or those of you who just care about other people's water and all of our water, I left the number for EPA Region 1 in the headline of this story, this video. So please check it out, because I don't know if I could go down to every single place. I'd be on the road 24/7, and I'm already mostly on the road 24/7. But I will tell you this. When the EPA, literally 2 weeks ago, takes a Superfund, a toxic landfill with radioactive material in it, underneath it, off the Superfund list, when literally residents are posting on Facebook black water and brown water coming out of their sinks, coming out of their bath water. And by the way, the Norton is saying, oh, it's because it's just it's not, the water is safe. It's just because the water, it's discolored because we keep flushing the pipes a lot. We're flushing the pipes over and over. Well, then my name is Susie and I have size double D boobies. That's a bad analogy, actually, but I got a bridge to sell you if you believe that. Not true. First of all, if you are why are you keep flushing the pipes over and over? Wouldn't that be because you know that there's a serious contamination issue, so you keep flushing the pipes over and over? And people I have spoken with in other areas, flushing the pipes over and over should not be causing black toxic water. And common sense, do you think it's safe to drink or bathe in that black toxic water? I wouldn't. I don't have any children, but I wouldn't allow them to drink it or bathe in it. It's crazy. It's crazy. You see this on CNN? See the New York Times? You got Heather Lynn reporting on it, an independent investigative reporter. Maybe some other people in Massachusetts are reporting on it, and I don't know much about it. I don't see this anywhere. It's like water contamination. It's like gun control, right? Some people say, well, don't call it gun control. Call it something else and you'll get more attention. Or don't call it water contamination. Call it like, something else. Well, what do you want us to call it to get some attention on it? Do we have to line up, 25 to 50 school children that are poisoned by water? Oh, wait, 20 school children were shot and killed in Connecticut, and our government didn't do anything. Again, it's not just a Massachusetts story. Check if you live near landfills. Check what industrial polluters are dumping shit in your water near you. And by the way, the EPA always reports that the situation isn't as bad as it is. They are in on the contamination cover-up because, let me tell you something. You think the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost a lot of money? $6 trillion? To replace all the pipes underneath the ground, underneath the streets, to clean up all these waste sites, to clean up homes, that would make what we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan look like pennies. The EPA, it's in the EPA and the state environmental agencies benefit to minimize results, to say, oh, nothing to see here. They told the people of Flint for 18 months, your water is fine. Don't believe your lying eyes. And by the way, for those people who ranting and raving, oh, Trump's EPA, this stuff has been going on under Obama. It went on under Obama, went on under Bush, went on under Clinton. It's not just a Trump thing. It's going to get worse. Make no mistake about that. It's going to get worse under the current president. But this recklessness, this dumping nuclear waste site next to rivers and water and reservoirs and lakes where people get their well waters, been going on for decades. Decades. The truth is, because I've been covering it all over the place, there is an environmental water epidemic happening in this country that's getting no attention because the government doesn't want it to get attention because they don't want mass panic, and most importantly, they don't want to pay for it. If the banks screw up, they will pay for it. If you're getting poisoned, you're on your own. Unbelievable.